Good evening, I hope I find you all well. I'm doing a video this evening which has been requested by YouTube user Fire, and it's about this fantastic beast of the Mesozoic Styracosaurus in 1:18 scale. So first off, this is a premium quality figure, and as with all the others, it comes in premium quality packaging. So you get this wonderful robust box with some fantastic artwork on the back and a lovely art sleeve, and obviously some metallic surrounding the writing there, and there's a collector's card in here and an insert which details the kind of environment which Styracosaurus would have lived in, so that you can display your figure against the kind of realistic background it would have actually lived in. So this is one of those figures I was incredibly excited about when the campaign started. It's part of the all-in tier of figures. So Styracosaurus obviously wasn't the largest of the ceratopsians, but it was an extraordinarily spectacular one on account of this incredibly elaborate frill with these great long spikes and horns. You know, it really was an outstanding. I did read somewhere once that it actually inspired the Alien Queen in the Aliens franchise. I don't know if that's true or if it was Chasmosaurus that inspired that. Either way, ceratopsians clearly were an influence. So looking at this figure, I mean, David obviously really did his homework and had Raul Ramos, who I recommend you check out his Instagram profile for more fantastic dinosaur artwork. He created the skulls of each genus of ceratopsian, and then David sculpted over the top of them to ensure that the contours were as precise as physically possible. So he's really done his research to ensure that these figures are as accurate as physically possible. And I think it's generally worked really well. Obviously there has to be some concession to the articulation. So certain body parts are kind of duplicated in different members of this particular series. Of course, this is just a wave 1 figure. There are 2 further waves coming out. So you can see the articulation in this one is generally a little bit smoother and a little less jarring than it is on the Triceratops. So the only thing I found with the Triceratops is the transitions in the articulation are a little hard, but it is the only figure that is like that really, because the other ones all have this sort of much smoother, more engineered look to them. So I'm not entirely sure what happened with the Triceratops. It's still an utterly magnificent figure and probably my favourite Triceratops figure ever, but really in terms of articulation, this one's fantastic. Again, if you want to know more about the articulation of these figures, David has produced videos of each figure detailing the entire range of motion that's possible in each single one, so I recommend you check that out. So of course the thing with the beasts of the Mesozoic is the posability of them. There's plenty of that. Of course there's an articulated jaw here. Mine bounces a little. I could probably do with applying some hot water treatments to this to make it a little smoother. You can see if I close it, it tends to spring back open a little bit. And if I just bring it up to the camera there, I hope you'll be able to see that there is a sculpted tongue in there, and I think the tongue moves. I know on one of my ceratopsian figures it does, that's also articulated. And what you should also be able to see in there is these beautifully painted rows of shearing teeth, which ceratopsians are famous for. Obviously there's a little debate about whether ceratopsians had what you would call cheeks or not. Now it's a difficult term because a cheek doesn't necessarily have to be muscular. So if you follow an anatomist called Dr. Ali Nabavazadeh on Twitter, he did a lot of research on ornithischian soft tissues, and he's definitely worth checking out for information on this kind of issue. But if we look really at the detailing on this figure, you can see that David's gone for a skin type texture on this frill. The Triceratops again is the only one that's got a keratinous type texture on the frill. Either one works for me. I do love the look of the Triceratops, but as you can see it's got all this beautiful scale details sculpted on this Styracosaurus and lovely transitions in the horn colours. I mean, on top of Styracosaurus being a spectacular looking genus anyway, David has chosen an incredibly vibrant colour scheme for this one. I know some people find vibrant colour schemes on dinosaurs again a little bit jarring. As most large animals tend to be quite muted in their colours. I don't see any reason why they can't be brightly coloured. I know it's more likely than not that they weren't, but you know, they probably had much better vision than we do, and the chances are they could pick up colours on each other that we can't even see. So I like to tend to imagine it as if this is the colours that the dinosaurs would see each other, rather than the colours that we would see them in. So looking at the sculptural detail here, you can see there's a few little hornlets over the eyes and up the frill. The eye is beautifully painted. There is a sculpted nostril in here. It's not painted in any particular colour, but it's very obvious when you have the figure up close. Again, lovely scale detail all over the body. You can see there's these little tiny osteoderms down the flanks and along the tail. I love the transition between the red to the green and then the red again at the end of the tail, and then these little stripes. That works really, really well. Unlike the Triceratops, the scale detail is the same on the underside, and I like that because each of these dinosaur figures has its own character, and that works really, really well. If you look at it from above, you can see the bulging of the tissues underneath the flesh, and I love that look. It certainly enhances the realism of the figure. The only thing I find with this one is the neck is maybe a little narrow at the top. So if you think Ceratopsians would have great big muscles up here, holding up these strong heads for, you know, butting each other and wrestling, because obviously they didn't charge and clash into each other as was assumed when I was a child, showing my age here. But they certainly would have wrestled and wrangled using their horns. And the proportions are very, very good. Of course, there have to be some concessions when you've got articulation and you've got mass-produced figures, and of course some figures share parts, but overall, really, you've got a fairly spectacular Styracosaurus here, and the scale of detail and everything is absolutely gorgeous. So I've just got a comparison figure for you here, which is the collector Styracosaurus. This is the deluxe 140 scale, because this is one of the best Styracosaurus figures ever made as well. I absolutely adore this figure, but of course this one does beat it both in terms of size and also in every term of quality, and also in accuracy, I would say. Of course, collector also has this habit of putting a sort of fluff down the back of the tail. Again, there's nothing to say they didn't have that, but of course the only known ceratopsian to have it really at this stage is Psittacosaurus, and I'll go into Psittacosaurus in a later video. It's quite interesting looking at the proportions of these two. As you can see, they agree pretty closely, but the head overall of the collector figure is almost the size of the Beasts of the Mesozoic figure, even though this is 140 scale and this is 1:18. I do always find that collector figures are a little wobbly in their scales. They don't tend to match particularly well for what they really are. Now, the Styracosaurus figure I have is this very, very old little Dino Riders figure, and as you can see, things have moved on quite a long way since this little fellow was made. I would love it if a company again did Dino Rider style figures. I do believe that was a possibility that David had been discussing. I've always loved these very lifelike eyes in these figures. So, little hood of Styracosaurus here. So I really hope that you've enjoyed having a look at this absolutely spectacular figure with me. It is a premium quality figure, so it comes with quite a high price tag. You're looking at about $52.99 for this figure. It really is a collector's item and not a toy. Although things are a little softer than they are with the Triceratops, this is still something which isn't really designed for younger children. It really is something that's designed more as a display piece and something to play with. I have great fun playing with these, changing their pose and getting them to sit down and stand up, and you know, they just are. Once you've got one, you can't put it down. And it's such a strong, durable, high quality material. It should take any amount of you messing about with it, you know, unless you're dropping them on concrete or something like that. These figures are going to last and last and last a very long time. We've already got the Raptor series, which are tried and tested, and the quality is proven. So the same will certainly be true of these. So it's a bit of an investment. If you want one of these, I recommend you go over to Everything Dinosaur and check them out. This is where I got mine from. Because the Everything Dinosaur are the distributor in Europe and also distributed the ones via the Kickstarter. But check them out. They've got all the Wave 1 figures up for sale on their website. And I hope you enjoyed looking at that figure for me. If you've got any questions, please ask, or if you feel there's anything I've missed, please let me know. I hope you're all well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.